Live from the Green Room Studios, from the spacious property of Bates Nursery and Garden Center, 3810 Whites Creek Pike, it's the At Home Show with Josh Cary and David Bates.
Oh, yeah, calm down. We're going to be here for an hour, so we got everything going on. Hey, welcome in, everybody. It's your Saturday morning tradition. It is the At Home Show. I'm Josh Cary, and that guy over there.
I'm David Bates.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
What a glorious morning
You can introduce me if you like. I forget
Huh?
who I am half the time.
Well, I mean, you're there.
Yeah, that's
you're
right.
here.
I'm talking to you.
Yeah, okay. But we're coming to you, of course, from the Green Room Studios here at Bates Nursery and Garden Center, 0.9 miles north of Bradley Parkway at exit 19. Come out and see us. It's going to be great. We probably put a mosh pit together out here this morning.
We're going to enjoy this day, guys, because this is the last day of relatively pleasant temperatures.
Calmness.
We're going to go ahead and get started on the weather here. Of course,
okay.
We're live here from the Green Room. Bates Nursery Station is recording 61 degrees currently.
Glorious.
Really nice. Very pleasant. Only 88 degrees for the high today, and just going to be nice. Very just a few clouds here and there. However, that's going to change. So let's go to the 10-day here, and we'll quickly see that, we've got a whole lot of other temperature range. Tomorrow it begins to warm up, 94 degrees and partly cloudy tomorrow, so at least there's a few clouds. But look at these triple digits coming in Monday, Tuesday, 100 degrees. Monday,
lovely.
Degrees. Tuesday, 98 Wednesday, 97 Thursday, 97 Friday. It cools down dramatically by Saturday, only 93 for next week. And then we reach back up to triple digits a week from this coming Monday. So it's a hot forecast out there, and which means that this is why that we stay prepared to do all the things that are necessary to be done with respect to taking care of our plants.
Yeah, closed circuit. Yeah.
We grow and sell plants off the top of pavement here, and we do that regardless of the outside conditions. So irrigation is one of those issues that will come up frequently at this time of year, but that's for the future, because today it's only going to be 88. A really glorious day.
Wonderful.
And a great opportunity to find out what's going on around your lawn and your landscape. Because obviously, if you look around the studio here, a lot of things are in bloom right now. My newsletter this week, I talked and featured hydrangea, which are a huge item this time of year, but they're not the only thing, and we'll discuss. I see some buddleia and other things around here.
Who's got bud?
Behind me there. And so
Bud Light?
So there's that. But before we go further, let's bring in the rest of our cast members.
Okay.
Of course, Tyler Blankenship in the blue shirt right there.
Good morning,
good
everyone.
morning to you, Tyler.
Gotta have the Tyler cam. Come on, man.
I can't do it today.
You can't do the Tyler cam today?
No, I have to get close.
Okay, there we go.
Those other voices you hear across the way, Caroline Gant and Austin Lowen. Welcome in, guys. Great to see you this morning. And then we're going to switch over to that camera here. There we go.
Good morning.
Great to see you guys.
Good to see you.
morning. And a lot of color there. And one of the things I like most about the color on your end of the set is that it's not all in flowers.
Nope.
There's a lot of great foliage. Caladiums there are
gorgeous,
doing their thing. And particularly when you've got areas where you don't have a whole lot of sun, they're a great choice for that. But I'll digress for just a moment and pitch it over to you guys. How you doing today?
Doing good.
I'm doing well too.
Okay.
I'm here. Caroline did the whole studio yesterday by herself. I'm still injured, so
all alone.
She went on the pink theme this time, which I'm happy with. Pink's my favorite flower color, but also, like you said, David, foliage color with the caladiums right here.
Gorgeous.
God, one of the best shade annuals there is to grow. So,
and this one is in both of our mixed planters.
Love them.
That's right. I know everybody loves them. I feel like the colors that you get, pinks, reds, whites. I mean, God, there's just so many. So caladiums are certainly worth putting in your pots in that shady area, or even in the ground.
And I can't quite see what's in between you guys. That's in the white flowering spike there. That's sticking up in front of it.
Almost looks like an orchid.
It's not an orchid.
Wow.
It's actually a flowering perennial. It's a common name, beard tongue. Penstemon is the genus. And they've got some dark foliage.
It is pretty.
Yeah.
I'm a fan.
I've had some eye issues, so my vision is not quite what it used to be. So anyway, but I could see it was there, and that's still good. And but a lot of great color in the studio today. So and I'm sure, Caroline, we have some questions out there from folks who are interested in things going on in their yard, and perhaps we can spend some time today on getting them some answers to what's going on out their backyard.
All right, let's go ahead and get started. Our first one comes from Miriam. She asks, what's causing mildew on established crepe myrtle? What do I do? I've never seen it before. Ooh.
Right. Mildew on the myrtle.
It's not uncommon at all, even with established crepe myrtles, to get. I'm assuming you're talking about powdery mildew. Maybe not. You may be talking about some more of like a black sooty mold that's usually caused by aphids. Aphids really like crepe myrtles, and they'll be on the back sides of the leaves, and then they'll excrete their honeydew, which is their excrement, if you will, and then that catches some mold. So it could be that if it's black, then that's what you're dealing with. If it's white, then that's called powdery mildew, and that's just a common fungal disease that plants can get. Specifically, crepe myrtle gets it a fair amount. Not that hard to deal with. If it is an established crepe myrtle and you have just a little bit of powdery mildew, pruning out that issue is usually the way to do it first. If you can't do that, then we're going to get you a fungicide to spray on your plants, and that should help out with anything you've got. So, good question, Miriam. But yeah, very, very common for crepe myrtles to get those two things specifically.
Well, sounds like fun.
It's not.
No.
It's not fun at all.
No.
All right, moving on to our first rose question of the day.
Uh-oh.
I know. Ooh, what's the best way to deal with black spot on roses? And then they said, thank you.
Yeah. Well,
So
Nice.
polite.
hopefully
Yeah.
I can help you.
I
Black
think
spot.
you can.
Yeah, black spot. It's very, very common and inevitable, if you will, if you're growing roses in Middle Tennessee. It is what it is. This year hasn't been a horrible year for black spot, I will say that. But it is still out there, and you're going to see it every year. So if you really do want to control it and you don't want to see it at all, then you've really got to get on a fungicide regimen that you're going to spray literally every 2 weeks on your roses during the spring months into the hottest part of the summer. As the hottest part of the summer draws on, the black spot lessens, and you don't have to do it quite as much, maybe once a month. But it's no joke that you're going to have to spray fungicide if you want to get rid of black spot, because it's going to be persistent.
And you really have to, as you alluded to, that's one of those things you need to prevent.
Yes.
You need to don't wait for it to happen. Have the knowledge that it will happen, and unless you do something to prevent it, you're going to have black spot on the foliage. So and you probably should be equipped with at least 2 different types of fungicide, because black spot is somewhat resistant if you use a singular one. So you may want to have a copper-based fungicide and something else that's more targeted specifically for roses, and that will help increase the effectiveness of either one of them. Resistance tends to get built up, so get ahead of the curve on black spot.
Definitely. Once you got it, y'all. The fungicides, after you spray them, aren't going to cure your black spot that's already on the leaves. I want you to know that. They're not going to go back pretty green anymore. So once you do have it, those leaves are going to persist with the black spot. So like David said, prevent it, and you shouldn't see any of that.
Not fun. I have some on my Carefree Wonder Rose right now.
That's a good rose.
It's a great rose. It's not taking
And the
over
great thing
yet,
about
but
a Carefree
it's there.
Wonder, though, another shrub roses, is that they at least grow aggressively enough where you could cut them back and remove a lot of that, and then you got to really spray to keep the new growth treated. So, but tea roses, for instance, you don't have that luxury really, so you need to really stay ahead of the curve.
That's a good point too. Just to note is that you can really cut on your roses throughout the whole season, y'all. Don't be scared to cut on them too much, especially if you do have an issue like that, or even pest issues, and you don't have a ton of leaves. You don't have you're in between bloom cycles. You're not seeing a lot of color. It's a good time to cut them back. Roses are vigorous during the growing season, so if you do cut them, they will respond and come back. And then getting the fungicide on the new leaves that emerge, that'll keep them cleaner as the season goes on.
What about feeding them? I mean,
That too. They're heavy feeders.
Yeah.
They're a little bit persnickety about where their pH needs to be. Roses are roses. There's no reason why everybody talks about how growing roses is a little hard. They're not wrong. They come with their issues. So just be ready to work with all plants, and if you want pretty things, you got to work for them. Some things are pretty without you doing much. Roses are not that way. If you really want them pretty, you got to work with them.
Yep.
Yep, they do take a lot of work. All right, so we've got a hydrangea question.
Dun, dun, dun.
Get it.
Which we had in David's newsletter this week. How much will first-year hydrangeas grow and bloom?
Just as much, pretty much, as any year. I guess they'll slow down a little on the first season. They don't really, with any new plant, they're fairly slow on the first season, but hydrangeas are a little bit different. Now, it kind of depends on which species we're talking about, but for the most part, if you're planting a hydrangea, even if you plant a small one, they're going to get pretty large as the season goes on, and you'll get just as many blooms as stems that you have. So obviously, the more stems that you have and more shrub that you have, the more blooms that will be produced on those stems. But first year hydrangea is gonna bloom just like it would on a second or third year. They're just not quite as big yet. So, but yeah, they're ready to go.
Absolutely.
This is hydrangea season, and we'll be talking about that more as we go through the program today, because hydrangeas are one of the things that, just one of the things, but at this time of year, they are a really an important part of the overall palette of plants to paint your garden with, because there's just about every different color, and whether you have sun or shade, there's a plant, hydrangea, that will work for you.
There is, and they bloom for so long. There's so many that it throughout most of the whole late spring into summer, they're blooming. I mean, you got to have some hydrangeas in your yard.
How many do you have?
Well,
this sounds like a good time to go to input number 2.
It does. Well, Austin's counting his hydrangeas in his head.
I got 3 different species, if you will, but I've got at least 9 or 10 different plants. And I took a pic actually, my wife took a pic of me last night. I had to do it.
Lord, man.
Look at those.
Giant.
So I stand 6 feet tall, and that bloom is resting
on that?
It's resting on my chin.
There we go.
That's the tallest bloom I could find, and I've got to let y'all know.
And
so that's
you're 6 foot, 6'1".
I'm exactly 6 foot tall, and I'm standing right behind it. And that is an incredible hydrangea, and that's actually 5 of them that I planted pretty tight together, which I wanted you to know you can do that. You need to put them pretty close. That makes the best effect. That's how you get that mass.
I think that's the way they're best used, is in mass.
Definitely,
really
and that
like
helps them from
effect.
flopping a little bit too, because they've got all these stems that are helping other stems stand up a little bit better. So what I did want y'all to know too, it's not a joke. I'm not lying about this. That stem that you see and that bloom that's up underneath my chin, that is a sucker stem from the dirt.
Wow.
That did not come back from the sticks. Now, I do prune, and I leave some of the old sticks up, and they do leaf out from those sticks just fine. But what you see is a lot of sucker stems come up from the base of the plant as well. And that one specifically came all the way from the ground. And you got to know that how the sun, those hydrangeas grow like that because of the sun exposure. So the sun goes across my home all the way across. So if you're looking at that picture to my right, it goes all the way across, and I get probably 6 hours of sun directly through the day. But the ones in the back row are obviously taller because they're reaching for that sun, and the front stems stay lower. So I get this kind of stair step exactly how I want it, where the back row is taller than the front row. So, but no shortage of blooms. It's only about half show. It's not even full bloom right now. So,
and for those of people who are curious, an Incredible is an Annabelle cultivar, and because of that, it's a sun lover. And I've got a group of 10 Annabelles planted in a triangle pattern in a bed at my house. I don't have a picture here with me today, but we used the exact same principles that Austin is talking about. When they are getting ready to start pushing new growth in the early spring, I cut them back hard. I mean, I cut them back to like about a foot above the ground. And because they've been in the ground a number of years and in mass together, they really do a great job of helping each other stand up. Now, the big enemy to those at this time of year are these thunderstorms that have a heavy precip rate. They'll load those blooms up with water, and that can make them flop. But as long as you don't get that, they're going to really be great throughout the entire blooming cycle that they go through. They're really an excellent plant.
yeah, it really is, especially that Incredible variety. It's really performed well for me.
How much space do you have from behind the plant to the brick?
Well, what's funny is you can't see them from here, but behind those Incredible hydrangeas, I've got 3 camellias that are up against that brick wall. And this time of year, they get blocked. Now, over the wintertime, they're nice because I do cut those sticks back, and you can see the evergreen foliage from the camellias going up that brick wall. So camellias will typically get, anywhere from 8 to 12 feet tall, depending on the age and all that. And like, look, you cannot even see them at all. I'm standing right in front of camellias, and they're not there. You can't see them.
This wall that you're in front of is a south-facing wall, then, correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
More or less.
More or less, yeah.
So, it's really a great way to use those camellias because they don't really like that hot, blistering sun. So they get a lot of shade during the
summer months,
worst part of the summer. And as those the foliage and the flowers start to go away on the hydrangeas, they really are able to get light and bring on the flowers during the winter. And are yours winter or spring flowering camellias?
They're late fall into winter. There is when they bloom. It's called London Town Blush, I believe, is the camellia I went with, and it's a single pink. But they're really loaded up, and it's a very hardy variety from what I was reading about it. You know, camellias can be a little finicky here if you don't have them in the right place, but those are tucked up against the wall. They're really protected from those harsh winter winds, and they do really well for me. They had a beautiful flush this year. So this is the third season on all my plants in this bed, so they're really starting to go this year. And the camellias are no different. And like you said, David, once the hydrangeas back off over the winter, they get plenty of that winter sunlight that the camellias really need. Yeah. And they perform well for me. So I'm hoping they really get up on that wall and hide something. It's a very tall wall I've got there, so I'll really need something to kind of cover it. And as they grow up taller, I think that'll be a nice effect.
Emily Boyd is watching on Facebook. And Emily, I think you've set your coffee cup down on your keyboard because we've gotten some really unusual messages here from you. Lots of 9s, lots of 6s. We've got some periods and some punctuation marks. But if you've got a question, just post it up there for us as well. We'll get to you as best we can. Okay. Oh, and
speaking of questions, do you have more, Carolina, or are there more photographs you're going to show us, Josh?
Not right now. We'll hold on to that.
We'll take a photo break. All right.
Okay.
Let's keep going with questions. Mm-hmm. Do you have tips for pruning viburnum, leatherleaf, to create a tall hedge?
Well, if you want to create a tall hedge, I would say don't prune much at all. But depending on how tall you want, you can certainly thicken a viburnum by pruning it. So if you need a tighter hedge that creates a lot more foliage, it's certainly good practice to go ahead and top them and keep them more of like a hedge. So you're going to go in there and do it about a couple times a year to kind of keep them, nice and tight and growing. So viburnums are very hardy, tough plants. So timing on pruning isn't really all that crucial as long as we're talking about an established hedge. If they've been there a while, I mean, God, if they were 8 feet tall, you could take them back to 4, and you ain't going to hurt anything. They're going to come right back.
That's
so,
right.
Leatherleaf for sure.
One thing you might hurt, then it bothers me quite a lot, is there's no itch like the itch that viburnum give me. Now, maybe not everybody's so sensitive to that, but if I'm trimming viburnums, I'm going to have long sleeves on and gloves just because it drives me crazy. It is nothing. I don't really break out or anything, but it isn't. Particularly the leatherleaf cultivars.
Yes.
Gosh, it is. I think there's
fuzzy?
little spines or something in there.
Yeah.
They're an itch machine.
Yeah,
so
they
just
are.
Be mindful of that.
Yeah,
but as far as what it does to the plant, it doesn't hurt them at all to cut them, as you just said.
Not at all. Whenever we get them in off trucks and we unload, say 10, 20 at a time, the like you said, Josh, they have like a little kind of pubescence on the back sides of their leaves, if you will, and that's common with most all viburnum. And they release into the air. You can feel it in your throat and your nose. Your eyes get itchy. It's like you said, when you prune them, be careful. They can really get you. They bother my allergies more so than they do the itch on my skin. But everyone's different with that. So some people may not hurt them at all. It's kind of like people that are resistant to poison ivy. I'm not whatsoever. If I get in poison ivy, I'm breaking out. You better believe it. But some people aren't. So, But just know it can happen.
Very good.
Well, poison ivy. I've never had a reaction to that, so hopefully I never will.
Oh, you're lucky.
I am.
That's one of my favorite landscape contractor names of a customer of ours, and their name of their company is Poise and Ivy.
That's a fantastic name.
She's a really nice lady.
Name, yes.
Yeah, she's great. There's some really good names out there. Temple of Bloom is my favorite.
That's a good one.
I like
Old
that
Hope,
one
yeah.
also.
She's fantastic. All right, let's get on to another question, shall we?
Certainly.
Let's do it.
What are the ideal growing locations for rhododendron in northern Alabama?
The Smoky Mountains.
That is, you're right. That's the most ideal,
Yes.
Josh. It is. Northern Alabama, although A little different from us. Not too bad, though. Really, that's not that much further. I mean, it's a little bit. So it's hot. Not that rhododendron can't take it hot. Now, you're going to want to put it in some shade, though. There's certainly going to want some shade and some protection as much as you can. And I'm not sure northern Alabama soil, how much different it is than ours. I would assume it's pretty similar. Maybe a little sandier. I don't know. If
clay all the way.
Clay all the way. Speaking of, we got a northern Alabama.
Well, that question's actually from my mom. So
Wow.
you better give her a good answer.
I'm working
Mama
on it.
T.
Yep.
How about an east face on a hill?
There
if
you
you've
go.
got it. I mean, that would be where I would go because they're absolutely stunning when they take over and just let it run wild.
Yeah, I mean, let it be.
Back to what Tyler's talking about, the composition of the soil it is definitely something that will work against rhododendron or any azalea for that matter. They have very fine hair-like root structure, so they can't penetrate into a hard compacted soil. Therefore, the necessity for doing extensive soil preparation is going to be a really big deal. And if you fail to prepare the soil enough, you're going to either have a wet feet situation or they're going to run into that hard soil that the roots cannot possibly penetrate. So using a lot of organic material into that clay composition soil, I would suggest on a rhododendron, particularly if you're going to invest that kind of money, is to take that clay soil and just waste it off and bring all good soil back in and elevate it. You don't want to plant it low at all. You want it up where the crown of that root ball is right at the top of the ground, if not slightly above. And you want to have some drainage room underneath. So it's very important to do proper soil preparation. And if you do that and plant it on the east side of the house where it gets only morning sun and it's shaded, or at least have the shade of another structure or other trees during the hot part of the day, you can have great success. They do wonderfully if you find that happy spot.
Yep.
If you don't do those things, you're going to be dealing with a lot of frustration because they
Fairly
are
acidic soil
persnickety.
too, David. Fairly acidic soil.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And also,
One thing northern Alabama has is plenty of pine
Pines.
soil.
Yeah.
So that's that can make up a large amount of that amended soil that you put in there.
yeah. And I also think another thing to note with rhododendron is the biggest key, and that's patience. Caroline, let's talk about your rhododendron.
Oh,
Caroline's had a rhododendron now. How long?
I've had two that I planted when I bought my house in 2017. This is the first year they've really pushed new growth and gotten any bigger.
And
The year I
5
decided
years.
to move them, but now I won't.
don't move them. It's not time.
They
to-
were gorgeous when they bloomed. I'm not going to.
Okay, good. She sent us a group. We got group threads with plant people. All it's just constant with us and our plant groups. And she sent a picture of her rhododendron this spring, and I almost didn't know what it was. Like I looked at it, I was like, what is that? And then I looked at it further, and it was a rhododendron, and it is fantastic.
It's gorgeous. It's light pink and yellow, the blooms
Wow.
are. But yeah, it took a long time to establish. I definitely planted it way too close to the foundation of my house, but I'm just going to let it go and see how it does.
Let it be now.
and-
It's
and, you know,
latched in.
The other side of it is within 2 more years, you're going to be going, what am I going to do with this thing? It's so huge.
I hope so.
it's going to be a
good
rhododendron
time to-
hail.
A good time to transplant is, of course, not now. If you were going to do that during the dormant season, say from mid-November through mid-February is a good time to do that. And the great thing about what you would likely be doing with that one is you're not really taking it to a different spot. You're just moving it further away from where it's currently residing. So you could essentially dig a trench and dig all around
Slide
it
it.
and just slide the whole
slide it
plant
over.
over and then
not a
immediately
bad idea.
water it. So that'll keep it happy. But I would recommend considering well how far you need to get it moved out because you don't want to have to move it again.
True. I might just let it go and see
I was
what
about to say, I don't
happens.
want you to move it at all. It's
5
finally lasting.
years.
5 years of waiting for a bloom, and you're going to move it.
Yeah, I've just been staring at it for half a decade now, and it hasn't done
Speak
anything.
sternly to it.
Yes.
Cary.
So rhododendron growers all about be patient,
Yes.
but they are delightful when they bloom, and there's no better evergreen bloomer in our part of the world than rhododendron. So if you got a spot for them, put them in.
I have 3 now. Yeah. It's exciting. Are we ready for
There's-
another
there
question?
you go,
I think we are.
Mrs. B up in northern Alabama.
Yes, Tyler's mom. Thank you, Tyler's mom.
And good morning, Tyler's mom.
Yes.
I hope you're watching right now. All right, I have a Monstera albo growing with 2 growing nodes at the same time. Should I cut them? So I'm assuming
Now
what
tell
you
people
mean.
what that is, Caroline.
So a Monstera albo is a variegated Monstera. So it's green and white. It's a very sought after rare houseplant. So congratulations on getting your hands on one of those. They're so pretty and very cool. So I'm assuming what you mean by that is it's pushing out new growth in 2 directions. So the nodes that you're talking about are the aerial roots that start coming down. So if it's shooting out 2 of those roots, it's probably splitting off and it's going to leaf twice. So I personally would leave it so it would grow a little bit more bushy and less leggy. But if you want to send energy to one of those leaves and push new growth and make it a little bit taller, yes, you can go ahead and just cut one of those nodes off. But like I said, I usually leave my nodes alone. I'll wrap them and put them into the soil if they start growing out of the pot. Or you can put them in a glass of water and it's going to really send your Monstera growing like crazy. So those are cool plants.
That's a good point, though, what you just made with a lot of Monstera that does get long like that. Like she said, you have a lot of soil up top that doesn't have a lot of foliage, but you got some leaves that are coming down below the pot. Like she said, pick those stems up and just put them on top of the soil in the pot. And a lot of times they'll root from that, and they'll make a much bushier plant just without having to cut anything or anything at all. So leggy plants like that, it was a good idea putting that on top of the dirt like that.
If you come to our nursery and walk into the Houseplant Garden Center area where I spend most of my time, you'll see our huge philodendron salome, our tree philodendron, whose name is a Nyler. And if you'll notice, all the old roots are wrapped around and growing into the soil. So the person we got it from, instead of letting those roots kind of go crazy or cut them off, which isn't great for the plant, he wrapped the plant and in turn, it grew into the soil. Looks real cool for one, but it really promotes a lot of good, healthy growth. So those are cool plants. Great question.
Hey guys, let's take a departure for just a moment. We're talking about a lot of things with soil preparation, how to grow your plant successfully inside, and the one common denominator in all of that are Earth Mix Garden products. Now, Earth Mix Garden products, we've developed a complete line of soils and amendments, mulches, all the things you need to have the best success in your garden. Earth Mix Garden product has a product for you if you're, or say, planting rhododendrons in northern Alabama or anywhere else for that matter. Earth Mix Landscape is a great choice. It will give you all the things you need to properly lighten your soil and be able to amend it so that you can have a great opportunity for excellent new growth coming out of it. If you're talking about indoor plants, Proganics I is the best choice for indoor plantings. And Caroline even uses Proganics, our Earth Mix Supernatural, which is a compost that is produced as a fertilizer, and it's not sold as that, but it does have very high fertility properties, so you can use it for a natural organic fertilizer as well. Of course, Earth Mix Garden is the flagship product, and it's widely used for all outdoor applications. So the long and short of it is no matter which product you choose, there's an organic choice that will give you the highest productivity and results of any on the market, and that's Earth Mix. So check them out. The great thing about Earth Mix Garden products is they're available all over the eastern U.S. and particularly in Middle Tennessee and Kentucky, and also even up into Ohio and southern Indiana. And more locations coming all around. There's Greenfield Plant Farm way out.
Papua New Guinea?
We don't have anybody in Africa currently,
Okay.
so that's a little far out, but I inadvertently zapped the map out there. So just remember this: success in gardening begins at the ground level when you use Earth Mix Garden products, and we appreciate you giving us a moment to speak about that. So there we go.
You can even get it.
All right. Hey, we got some activity here on the Bates Facebook page.
Okay.
Let's go with the oldest question first. We got 2 here. Anything we can do for tomatoes during the coming extreme heat?
Well, that's
Good question.
Good question. And first things first, let's just start observance. It's going to be over 100 degrees probably at your house, and there's nothing you can do about that. The weather is the weather. So, I mean, tomatoes are going to have to get through it, and they can. And the tomatoes can certainly get through that temperature. Now, we do want to know, with tomatoes specifically, they like to stay evenly moist. What happens is when you get periods of really hot and dry, and then you get periods of a lot of rain. What you see is you'll get splitting on your fruit. So we're getting to the point of tomatoes now where they're starting to set fruit. I know if you planted them, whenever you planted them, for the most part, they're starting to set some fruit on them. So during those hottest parts of the day, maybe in the morning before you go to work or after you get home from work, just go out and look at them and see how they're doing. And if they're wilting a little bit or if they seem like they're dry, let's try to keep them evenly moist through this week anyway. Hopefully we get some rain, at least a little bit, by the end of the week or so, or middle of the week, and that'll help them out. But we want to keep them evenly moist as much as we can, and that'll prevent that splitting. But other than that, there's not much you can do with the weather. It just is what it is, and tomatoes are going to have to get through it. And like I said, they certainly can. They're tough plants, but just look at them.
Now, and it's better than not watering at all, but I would suggest you avoid overhead irrigation during the middle of the day.
Definitely.
That also it contributes a lot to the splitting on tomatoes. So anything that you can do during the cool, either in the directly to the soil, a drip irrigation system, a soaker hose, those kind of things are great. The foliage does not need
the water
on it. It's okay if it gets on there, but it does not require it. The soil requires the moisture. And so if you can get the soil at an even moisture, like Austin's talking about, you can do a great job of getting that moisture up into the plants. But they don't need to stay soaking wet. You just need to water them during the cool hours of the day, early evening and or early morning, and then try to avoid anything overhead during the middle of the day. You could drip irrigation or use a soaker hose during the middle of the day, but that might be confusing for some people. So just really avoid that, and you'll reduce the amount of splitting you get. Because when they're growing fast, the skin of the tomato simply cannot grow fast enough to deal with all the engorgement of water that's coming into these tomatoes. They're very juice laden. And that's why the splitting really gets bad. They're taking up the water faster than they can grow the skin around the outside of the fruit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the least amount of splashing you can do is certainly better.
Yes.
So putting the hose right to the root zone is where you want it to be, because we don't want to be splashing dirt around. That's when you start seeing fungal pathogens and other disease issues that you really just don't want to deal with. So water straight to the root zone if you need to water at all. Now, if you have raised beds, which is a very trendy thing now. Not trendy, it's been around for a long time, but a lot of people in Nashville have very small spaces and they can't grow tomatoes in their own dirt anymore. They have to do raised beds.
Yes.
Yep, that's you. So raised beds certainly need more water than what you would need in the ground. See, I've got a large garden just straight up in the ground, and I don't have to water near as much as people would in a raised bed scenario. So observance is the biggest key, and it always is with water. Look at your plants. If they look good, for the most part, let them be. If they look different, if they look off color or wilting, water.
Yeah, because when you have a raised bed area, it's essentially only like a half step removed from outright container gardening. It's just a very large container that's sitting directly on the ground. So you do get some benefit from the available moisture from underneath, but the negative side is that you have all of this outer perimeter that's exposed to the air and the sun, and it will dry more quickly. So as Austin again just correctly mentioned, you got to be more attuned to that, Josh. So don't forget to check the moisture and do it on a daily basis. That doesn't mean you need to water every day, however.
But then the peppers are going to love this hot weather, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to go crazy. So.
Definitely, yeah. My peppers are annoying me.
Mine are not doing anything. Everything else is.
My peppers are fine. Don't get me wrong. They're fairly small. The problem is that the weather. I planted a little late this year. Okay, I wish I would have gotten them in a little earlier. But what they're wanting to do is really flower and set fruit, and they're wanting to do that on pretty small plants. So what I've been doing is going through and picking off any little fruit that I see. I got a little bitty bell pepper plant that ain't but this big and had a fruit on it like this big. So that's taking up so much energy of that plant. So I went ahead and plucked it off, gave it to my daughter. She ate every bit of it, absolutely loved it. But like I said, I'm going through and picking off a lot of blooms and fruit that's happening on my peppers because I really want some growth. And like you said, Josh, they like it hot, and they're going to probably really push this week. I would think they would. And treat them similar to tomatoes, but not as much water. It doesn't seem like peppers need. Nowhere near like tomatoes tend to want to have. So.
It's dry in New Mexico where they grow a bunch of
very.
them. So,
it can be very dry, and they persist long into the season. I mean, all the way up until frost. A lot of times you got peppers, and Shoot, you'll even see, like, say you grow Tabasco peppers. If you've ever grown those, you'll see literally a 4x4 shrub with, and we'll say the frost already comes in and whacks off the leaves. You'll still have peppers on the plant. Even persisting after frost. Hundreds of them with Tabascos. So, good one to grow, especially if you like hot, because they ain't no joke. They're hot. I know, David, you can eat hot stuff, but God, Tabascos are they're too hot for me.
Oh.
Hey, David.
David, where are you going?
How did he get out there?
He beamed me out there. Just a little. That's little David as a companion.
LD.
Bring him
Hey,
in from
I
time
just
to
wanted
time.
to say something about the tomato question. I've seen people put up some 20 to 30% shade cloth over tomatoes if they're getting too much sun, especially if they're in a really, really, really hot, sunny location. And some people have said it's helped with their productivity as a plant because, really, really hot temperatures, just like us when we work outside, plants struggle a little bit.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, you're certainly right. I mean, there's, even tomatoes, which are some of the most sun-loving plants around, they don't want 100 degrees all day long either. They'll kind of, want to get away from that as well. So I've got an uncle, actually, or my wife's uncle, that grows his tomatoes and always has, avid kind of farmer, if you will, at his house. And he starts all of his tomatoes from seed by himself, and he grows his in an exclusively morning sun environment with no afternoon sun at all. And he produces tomatoes just as good as any person I've ever seen. So if you have morning sun without afternoon sun, that's fine for tomatoes too. So
one of the key things you might want to, if you're considering shade cloth, is to make sure that you have enough structure to keep it elevated enough. And you'll notice if you come out to the nursery in our shade areas, now it doesn't have to be that high, but it really helps to create a buffer zone between this extremely hot region that the shade cloth is knocking down and the air in between. So you can easily create a 15 to 20 degree temperature differential, at least as far as the stress on the plant is concerned. So try to have enough structure so that you can be a few feet above the top of the plants so that you actually can get the benefits of the comparatively cooler air temperatures. And that's really what the plants are appreciating, is not having to deal with that hot, stressful sun, particularly when you're in the triple-digit range like we may be looking at this coming week.
Yep. And the other question on the Bates Facebook page, it's a little bit of a long one. Is it too late to plant for migrating monarch? Normally, I am way ahead, but health issues have kept me from the garden. I have milkweed coming up. Maybe a list of plants I can put in the ground this weekend, please.
How about some of these?
How about it? Well, actually, Monarda is great as a nectar food source for hummingbirds and butterflies. But if you're wanting to
get the cats,
grow the milkweed population,
okay,
you're going to want to go with the Asclepias plant.
With this woo, the what?
Asclepias.
Spell that.
Asclepias.
Asclepias.
Yes.
That's easy for him to spell.
Yes.
Okay.
But yeah, you're right. They're specific to that plant. Monarch butterflies are very specific to that genus of plant. So milkweed is actually in bloom right now around town. The orange stuff you're seeing in fields or in people's gardens, whatever. And certainly not too late to plant milkweed. It's a very tough, durable plant. A hardy perennial, comes back every year without a problem. So if you haven't had time to do it or whatever, now's the time to do it. Now, it is going to get hot next week. We've already talked about that. So new plantings specifically, got to keep an eye on, and we really got to make sure they stay moist through this next week or two, or even really, we're getting into summer, y'all. It's about to be hot every day.
Yes.
So you really got to watch them. But yeah, definitely not too late to get those out there. And great pollinator plant for the monarch butterflies that we all love.
Yes, and just a tip. So there's a butterfly bush, which is the Asclepias tuberosa, that is good monarch food, but they also prefer the incarnata, which is the swamp milkweed, a lot. I mean, I've seen the caterpillars flock to that plant a little more than the other one, and that one has some it's a little bit bigger. It gets, maybe double in size height-wise, and the leaves are a little bit bigger too, which when they eat, because they are very hungry eaters,
very hungry caterpillars,
they will almost devour the entire
book,
plant
too.
unless it's, really got some growth on it. And this year we had monarch caterpillars earlier this season rather than later. So depending on the where the migration is at, you might get a different generation of monarch caterpillar on your plants. So just make sure, water them, get them watered in, and they will grow robust leaves for food.
And let's be clear here. We're trying to bring in monarch butterflies. What you have to get before you get butterflies is caterpillars.
Yes.
And those caterpillars are going to eat your leaves. That's the whole point, y'all. So we can't be saying, oh, I've got damage on my plants now. The worms are eating them. Well, that's the point. You're trying to feed those worms or caterpillars so they turn into beautiful monarchs. So don't be spraying your butterfly weed whenever they're getting messed up by caterpillars. So that's the point. So let them be. You have to deal with damage if you're growing natives for the butterfly population. So they're not going to take all of the plant or anything, and your plant can live through that season after season with some damage, but know that you're going to see that, and that's what we want.
I saw an unusual article that I didn't really dig into about the different varieties of milkweed, and that there are some that are causing the monarchs not to migrate. They're actually because of the nutrients that were in some of these plants. Is there any validity to these, or have you seen anything about
I haven't heard anything like that.
Okay.
But the one of the best milkweeds in that is common here. It's literally called common milkweed, and you can see it in some of the fields.
That's kind of
around
mean
here
to call it common.
Well, it's pretty common looking.
Common.
Fat, huge leaves. They'll never kill the plants, and that's probably your best bet. But we sell the Incarnata swamp milkweed, which I grow regularly, and it does great.
Right.
I've never seen I've seen them turn into butterflies.
And hence the name swamp
Hey, guys,
milkweed. If you have a little bit of moisture, too much, or a little bit of wet spot, you can use those for that. So there you go. Go ahead,
Okay,
David.
let me jump in here on all this milkweed talk for just a moment.
All right.
And let's
Somebody
talk
mentioned
about
butterflies.
where you can go to find such things. If you're trying to attract monarchs or other butterflies or other things in the garden, natives are a great way to start. And of course, we have a great selection of those at Bates Nursery and Garden Center. You need to find Joy Boven and pick her brain. She has extensive knowledge on that, and she coincidentally, or not so, is the lead down in our perennial area and also in our natives. She is the source, I would say, in all of Middle Tennessee. So you really need to talk to Joy, and she can not only make great suggestions for you, but tell you how to grow those and have success. Of course, we grow these plants and we sell these plants. They're container grown plants, and which means that you can have success in growing them all year long. It doesn't matter even if it's hot. You'll come out next week, you'll see we're growing them successfully on pavement, and water is the key to that. So we're going to help you to do that. And another key element of success in gardening is, of course, soil preparation. Earth Mix Garden Products is a significant part of that. Earth Mix Landscape is probably the go-to product for most of your landscape issues as far as soil preparation goes. Make sure you get that, and it will really give you the advantage that you need to be able to deal with stressing plants. And heat is really a big stress this time of year. So, but we've got a whole lot of other things. We still have a great selection of annuals down in the annual areas.
Absolutely.
You do every year,
We are
though.
flush with herbs. We still have tomatoes and peppers and other veggies.
Not to mention,
Yes,
now,
and
folks,
flowers.
I can't tell you how many times I've been asked, "Hey, they have mimosa trees at Bates."
Look,
They've got mimosa
go.
trees at
Right
Bates from
They're right over
Monrovia.
there.
Not
So,
just
yep.
a mimosa,
not
but
just-
chocolate fountain mimosa.
Which I
With-
have one of those in my yard.
you do.
The-
I've got a mimosa in my yard too.
Is yours a
Purple leaf
weeper
variety.
though, like mine?
The
So
absolute.
before this conversation gets completely away from me, let me hey, I
Give
just
it
want
to
to
me,
say
David.
we really appreciate you. We really appreciate you coming out to see us. And of course, the hot weather means that you're going to be thinking, "Gosh, I'm going to burn up out there." Well, you may. We can't do anything about the temperatures, but we can keep you hydrated. So we have iced bottled water on hand in both greenhouse areas. So make sure and pick you up a bottle or two while you're shopping to keep you properly hydrated. We don't want you, dehydrated gardeners, Josh, really don't perform at a good level. So it's not just the plants, it's the people who are planting the plants. So no matter what you're looking for, trees, shrubs, ground covers, edible landscape plants, we have it all at Bates Nursery and Garden Center, and we invite you to come out and see us. We're conveniently located 1 mile north of Briley Parkway at exit 19 on Whites Creek Pike, which is just minutes from Rivergate, Opry Mills, Nashville West, downtown Nashville. And I promise you this, it is worth the drive. No matter where you come, even Tyler from
Northern Alabama.
That's
Yeah,
right.
okay.
Northern Alabama. That's right. Your mom can come up and see us, and any of her buddies that want to come along as well.
Mom, I would like to see
check
you
us
too.
out. Yeah, he would like to see you, so make a special trip to see Tyler, Mom Blankenship. Hey, where we've been beautifying Nashville since 1932. This is our 90th year of business. We're very proud to be celebrating our Emerald anniversary here at Bates Nursery and Garden Center. Come see us. Bates Nursery and Garden Center, beautifying Nashville since 1932. And now I'm going to let you guys take over.
Well,
Can we look around the studio?
Adam
See what
Chapman and I have worked on getting some misting stations up and running here at the nursery. So we've got
Cool.
a fan with a mister on it, so you can be splattered
Wonderful.
with beautiful city water and
You
cool
know,
yourself off.
Well, and that helps a lot. Having cool stations are very important as the time's coming up, and we definitely are an area that can generate heat because of the amount of pavement. But we do a lot of watering, and we're very fortunate to have excellent water resources. So we keep things in tip-top shape. But the other side to watering is it also makes things humid.
But there's shade
When you
cloth
come out,
areas
plan
and
on drinking water.
fans are
and
running
we'll-
in this
Definitely.
greenhouses. I mean, it's not.
You can find a breeze
Yeah.
somewhere.
Oh yeah, I will say I think it's
they're
funny.
fans.
I have a number of customers that'll come out to me and talk to me about areas where they're wanting to put plants or whatever, and they'll say, "Look, it's the hottest spot. It's blazing. It's as hot as it's the most sun, area you could imagine." And then I say, "Well, look, guys, we're on asphalt in the middle of the sun, 100% sun all day long. You can't throw more sun at a plant than what we do." So if you've got a hot spot, don't
Not
worry
possible.
about finding a plant that's gonna work or thinking it's really picky or whatever. We've got a ton of different plants that are on asphalt 100% of the day, all day long. So if you got a hot spot, we got a plant for you. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
Very, very, very good.
Well, there
All right,
is
Caroline, back to you again.
back
Let's see
to
what
me.
you've got.
Here I go. But there is a little jingle Tyler made that we got to hear last week for the first
jingle?
time. Yes, a little intro
let's
for
do that.
somebody.
That's right. Because we got to know what's in bloom with Austin.
Why do you sound so down at the end of it?
Because he was missing
Because
you
it's
while you were
always
gone.
with Austin.
Yeah. All right. Well, what's in bloom? Let's talk about it. Mainly trees, or not a lot of trees, but some of them. I've already mentioned one that I'm about to get to, but let's talk. This is the fourth week in a row I'm mentioning magnolias.
Yep.
Still in bloom. 4 weeks in a row, y'all. Grow some magnolias because they bloom a long time and they smell fantastic. The second is the Chinese chestnuts. If you've never seen those or wondering what those weird looking trees are that are blooming right now, they're still going. This is the third week on those, so still really pretty on that. And then next up is what Caroline brought into the studio, and it's our mimosas.
Yes.
So they're certainly a non-native, fairly invasive plant, but still beautiful in their own respect. Now, I love mimosa trees. I just grew up with them. I know, out in the country, they're everywhere, along the roadsides and all over the place. My brother's got a beautiful one in his yard. Fantastic blooming tree that really, really are nice, but do know that, if you don't really want to plant something that's a little bit invasive, then you probably don't want to go with mimosa. But as long as you're mowing your lawn and keeping those seeds at bay, you can keep a single mimosa tree in your yard, and it shouldn't spread too much. But beautiful
Now,
blooming
is this
plants.
mimosa not a sterile? Is it a fertile type? So it's going to be reseeding also?
I'd have to look at it to see with that specific cultivar, but most of them hopefully are trying to get more sterile. But like I said,
That was my understanding that they were, but I might be wrong about that.
No, you could be right. I have not looked at that so much, but I don't ever notice them producing seed much out on the lot or anything. So you might be right.
They are absolutely the truest sign that summer's upon
Pretty
us.
much, yep. It's
Absolutely.
the start.
Absolutely.
So gotta love a mimosa. And then I've got the last tree that I can't even believe I'm mentioning this right now. It seems super early. Maybe it's not. Crepe myrtles have just started around town. I have noticed some crepe myrtles starting, and that is literally the longest blooming flowering tree that you can probably plant as an ornamental. So good close to your home, good out in the yard, good as as a screen. If you want a flowering screen, fast growing plants, everybody loves crepe myrtles. It's kind of the staple of the South. So they're
And
just
they come
starting.
in every color, just about, and
Anything
every
you
different growth habit. So if you need something really huge, you could go with a Natchez. If you need something much smaller, you can go with more dwarf varieties. There are even a lot of these pixie types that are a true ground cover nearly.
Pixie
So,
types.
as long as you've got sun, you can
okay.
have crepe myrtle.
Definitely, yeah. They got crepe myrtles now, a little 3x3 shrub if you want that. So all sorts, and we've got plenty right now. It's crepe myrtle season, so come out and see us if you need some. So there you go. Those are some of the trees that are in bloom, and then obviously I've got to mention the hydrangeas. They are
Hydrangeas.
certainly starting. The only one that hasn't started really yet is going to be our panicle types, which is the most commonly grown is limelight or little lime or bobo. Those are the panicle style hydrangeas. Those have not started yet, but they are certainly on their way soon. I've got a number of hydrangeas in the yard, and like you saw earlier from the picture, they're all really looking good right now.
This
so.
wee bit giddy is gorgeous.
That's
that are
fantastic.
behind us.
I know, and what a name.
Beautiful red.
There's wee bit giddy, and then there's wee bit grumpy. They're coming up. I don't know why. I guess that wee bit grumpy is a bluer one. It's blue. It's sad.
Wee bit drunky?
No,
No, they don't have that one yet.
not yet.
Okay.
It's coming. Maybe I'll introduce that one. Anyway, so moving on. After that, all the hydrangeas. Moving on, a number of perennials are in bloom, guys. So we mentioned butterfly weed. I noticed in the fields this morning; those are certainly up. The orange blooms are looking pretty. Caroline sent me a picture the other day of her gladiolus.
Oh yeah, mine are blooming.
Gladiolus. They are technically, I guess, corms. They're not really bulbs. They're corms. But anyway, they're pretty much like a bulb, and they are. I've got one in the yard, and it's budded up. It's not quite blooming yet. So Caroline had an early one. I don't know, but it was a beautiful blue. I mean, it was a really, really pretty one.
I want to give a shout out quickly to Kim Bradley and her. We couldn't quite work out getting a little special segment with her on hollyhocks, and the hollyhocks are in full bloom.
Oh,
prime color right now. So we're going to try that one again next year. I know that this is the absolute peak. Perhaps we will have another opportunity sooner than
Well,
that.
she's trying to get video,
you,
and we're
Kim.
having some
Thank you,
technical
Kim, for
issues
trying
on her
to make
side.
that happen.
Yes.
yeah. I need some pics of that. Kim, come on, girl, or just come out and see me today. I want to see some pictures of that because those are fantastic.
Well, she's
So-
asking me on YouTube how to get the photos, and usually, typically, your phone with its automatic settings will choose the best exposure for you.
Yep.
So,
Right.
and make sure to hold it horizontally, unless you're posting to a
That's
popular
sideways,
social media
Kim, yeah.
network. Right. And
That's the
hold-
landscape mode.
hold
They
it.
don't call it landscape mode for nothing.
There you go.
Yes. So hold your phone hamburger style, and then you can do a little walk around. You can push in and then pull back like that. Just walk the phone in and out. Yep. Give us some dynamics. We like to see the plant in the environment and then as close up and see the quality of the blooms. So hopefully that'll help you. And next year I definitely want to get out there and give them the proper treatment. So
But she can get the film now, and then just
yeah,
It
if
just-
if you can get it to us, we'll put it online.
and we'll get
I
it
believe
edited
she can
down,
get-
maybe even to move a
I
little
can
bit of
edit
magic.
it.
Yeah,
Yes.
so
Don't worry about editing. I can do that stuff.
All right.
So
Well,
there you
cool.
go. Well, sorry to interrupt you, but I wanted to
That's
do that
fine.
while we were thinking about it.
It's
Go ahead.
okay, no problem. I'm pretty much done because there's way too many perennials for me to say what's in bloom right now because there's so many. I mean, just sitting with us, we got bee balm, and this penstemon, echinacea, Shasta daisy. All of the perennials are really showing right now. So tons of things in bloom. Look around, look at them trees. Crepe myrtles are starting. Hydrangeas
Yeah.
are money. So it's a good time to be driving around looking at plants. Just don't look too much because you'll run off the road.
and the little tiger lilies
Yep,
out in
like
the
I did.
fields too. So I mean, they're popping up in the ditches and streams.
Ooh.
And wow.
Look
And then
at
all the
that.
annuals. Oh my God, the annuals. My petunias are fantastic right now.
They're your favorite.
Yeah, they are.
I don't have any planted this year.
That's the new above the cam there.
That's right.
Sky
I'm trying to
cam.
get us
That's
a better-
Oh
right.
wow,
We
Tyler, so
we
fancy.
Trying to get us some
we
better
invested
detail.
in extra. Yeah, we invested in extra technology this past week, so we need a level of redundancy in our cameras and a
Redundancy
lot of
works well on
variety
the
and
at-home
angles.
show.
So
Yeah.
All right, we got two more questions.
Okay.
Are y'all ready?
Let's
Yeah,
do
well,
it.
let's do it.
Running out of
Here
time.
we go. Carolina laurels aren't faring well on a rooftop. Other suggestions to achieve height.
Yes, unfortunately, yeah, Carolina laurel, they actually prefer a little bit of shade if you can give it to them. Once they're established, they can take the sun. But on a rooftop scenario, that's blazing, that's hot, and it's probably minimal water. So I see why they're probably not doing very well. You know, my favorite plant for a rooftop is going to be juniper. So extremely drought resistant. They don't need a ton of water. They prefer sunlight all day long. Hot and dry is great for them. And most of them can get upwards of 12 to 15 to 20 feet tall eventually.
Holy moly.
So great for a top of a roof scenario because they are so drought resistant. And they stay evergreen and they stay thick. So they give you a nice little screen.
And if you want some underplanting of annuals to go with them, lantanas are a great choice. They love it hot. They love it dry. You can't abuse them too much. They really are all about it.
Most definitely. And also, we've got a lot of lantana right now that's still really, really pretty. So if you need some, I just noticed yesterday, we've got a really good selection of lantana right now. So come out and get them. But yeah, use the juniper up top. It does well. Specifically Hollywood juniper. Check that one out. It's got a twisted habit, a little bit gnarly, a little bit funky. That may be
They
something
don't call
you
it
go with.
Hollywood for nothing.
That's right.
Hollywood.
Yeah.
All right. Final question.
Okay.
Is there a good hydrangea for a very shady area?
There is actually. And I would stick with the arborescens type. So like what David was talking about earlier that he grows at his house is the Annabelle hydrangeas. Those I have seen bloom in deep, heavy shade. So it's going to be the big white round blooms that we all like. And they will certainly bloom in the deep, heavy shade. That seems to be the best one I've noticed out of all the species of hydrangeas we sell here. That one seems to do the best in a deep, heavy shade environment. If you really like those Endless Summer collection, which is like the blues and the pink, round blooms, those actually do still need some sunlight to bloom. So if you're not getting any sunlight, those a lot of times will be a big, beautiful green shrub with no blooms on it. And nobody wants a hydrangea with no blooms on it.
That's
What's the
right.
point,
What's the
man?
point, Josh?
Yeah.
What's the point? So, yeah, but go with the arborescens type. We've got plenty right now. They're in full show. So come out and see us. We'll get you some.
All right. We got all those questions in.
Yeehaw.
Did it.
Very, very,
Did it.
very.
We nailed it.
Oh, crap. You know what? I got to mention one thing real quick because my
Okay.
wife loves these, and this is something else that's in bloom that I forgot, and it's the smoke trees. We forgot to talk about smoke
Oh,
tree.
They've been doing really good this year.
They really have.
Cotinus.
Yes, cotinus. And there's purple leaf varieties, there's regular green leaf varieties, and then there's like chartreuse colored leaf varieties, which are all stunners. So those really gnarly looking kind of shrubby trees you're seeing out around town that literally look like puffs of smoke above them, those are called smoke trees, and they are in bloom as well. So take a look at those.
Very, very, very
Yeah,
neat.
and they are the great thing about a smoke tree is that they're more frequently treated as a shrub, as you've already mentioned, and so you don't have to worry about cutting those back. We have one out Renee has I'll call it hers because she's the one that does all the doing. But we have a smoke tree, a purple
Does
leaf,
the
royal
doing.
purple, which is a great cultivar that we cut back heavily every year. And that keeps it at a manageable size. It also keeps that beautiful
Shape.
purple foliage down closer to the ground, and then the flowers that come, the smoke, as it were, that comes later in the season, keeps it more in view and not hidden from view so much. So don't be afraid to cut those. They are a great accent plant to any garden.
Yeah, that's a very good tip because most people don't do that, and then when you think you're buying a smoke bush, certainly turns into a smoke tree, and I'm not even joking. I passed one this morning right up the road from here. It's 20, 25 foot tall and just leggy and kind of stringy. I mean, it's still blooming nicely, yeah, but like David said, you don't get that foliage that you really like, especially with the purple leaf varieties. If you don't cut on them and keep them a little bit shorter and stumpier, that keeps the foliage tighter in there. So you get that two-tone show instead of just a big leggy tree with the blooms atop of that.
Because they're not particularly pretty when they're in that shape either. I mean, they're just
don't think so.
Well, I have to argue. Last weekend, I was in Kentucky, and at the Airbnb I stayed at, it was this little bungalow. To the left of it was a smoke tree, but it was actually the sidewalk was at a higher slope than the house. So the smoke tree, growing so
down the
tall,
hill.
you got the foliage at the sidewalk level, and it was still really beautiful and really massive. So
And
consider
that's a great point that's a great point you make, Tyler, is that it has all to do with what the perspective that the plant's likely to be viewed from. So if you're from a second story window or it's a downhill look, certainly you can allow it to get bigger and you still get all that great look. But if you're on level ground and you don't keep cutting it back, you're going to be losing out on the opportunity. And Josh, and we're gonna hand it over to you for this little ending segment here.
Well, everybody who has been listening to the At Home Show for any period of time knows that we had a set of twins, Bella twins, and this is my Bella, and Bella had to go across the Rainbow Bridge this week. So, but that was the snake getting, rabbit bringing, squirrel chasing, king of the world. She got a snake every year that she was with us. So, but BB, hey, just go over there and pee-pee on the bushes on the other side of the bridge. So,
and I'm sure that she will. And of course, our Bella at Bates Nursery, who's been in retirement for a number of years. Just for those of you who are curious, she's still doing well. She's about 17 years old.
Oh, wow.
She's a really old dog, and we
that was the best cookie
appreciate her
dog going along. Yeah.
Well, we appreciate these companions for every day we have them, and so both Bellas are been pretty stellar companions. We'll have to give them both that. So, thank you for putting that out there for us to remember. You're Bella, and she'll always be a part of the At Home Show.
Yeah, you got to bring the dogs out in the garden with you too. I mean, we used to talk everything that's going on with them. So, but yeah, folks, it's a pleasure to have them. It's a pleasure to have you as viewers and listeners to the At Home Show.
We're done again
morning.
for one more week.
One more. It's going to be hot next Saturday morning in here, so we'll have to crank the air up, I think, get going. And by the way, closed circuit to the folks at Allen's Air Care. Yeah, Monday, please come Monday. So everything's going to be ready to roll. Inside joke. Hey, for everybody here and the entire cast of the At Home Show, we thank you for participating. Come out to Bates Nursery and Garden Center and see what's going on. Grab a mimosa tree while you're out here, because everybody always wants to know, they got mimosa trees? They've got mimosa trees. Folks, thank you. We'll see you right here from the Green Room Studios next Saturday morning for the At Home Show.